Speedrunning can feel like a daunting task when you don't know where to start. Trust me, I've been there. Whether it's a brand new game that no one else runs, an old game that everyone forgot about, or a game that tons of people actually do run but you just don't know where to start, it's easy to feel lost when you've never tried to speedrun something before. So I decided, let's make a video about that, and maybe help a few people get on the right track. A quick warning, not all games are made equal for going fast. Puzzle games tend to be the most straightforward and not broken. Platformers and more action-based games tend to be more complex and glitchy. It's not a reason to exclusively play a game, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. Before we dive too deep, if you really don't care about showing what you're doing, and you want to play for yourself, awesome. Play the game and time yourself using a stopwatch or your phone. Just jot down the time somewhere if the game doesn't track it. This way, you can keep trying to improve on your time. Otherwise, if you want to dive a bit deeper, continue forward. I'm not going to touch way too much on setting up individual software or streaming setups, but I will link both speedrun.com's resource page and some resources for recording software and timing software in the description below. First and foremost, speedrunning takes time. Getting good at a game almost always comes down to how much time you want to spend and how much effort you want to put in. That being said, it can be a whole lot easier if other people have put in the effort and made resources to help you out, like guides to games and glitch databases on how to break things beyond recognition. There is a huge range for how much is already out there on resources-wise for a game, and that can shape the options you already have. So based on these two things, we have a grid on what you can learn. Timestamps will be in the description below to help you jump to specific spots if you feel that they better align with what you're looking for. Otherwise, we'll be going down the list. First, a game with tons of knowledge, such as Donkey Kong 64, where the game has guides for different ways to speedrun it, a glitch database, and more. Then, we dive into what is more likely situations, games that may have had some glitches uncovered, a handful of speedruns, but they may be out of date or not really well documented. Finally, we will be tackling the beast that is a brand new fresh game where there might not be anyone interested in breaking it, or there's a bit of a buzz, and how to build that into speedrunning. As we go through each category, I'm going to go through different options depending on how much time you want to dedicate to the hobby. No judgment here. But there are big differences between the things you can do that take a lot of effort and the things that aren't much more than just playing the game with a timer on. Alright, into the meat of it all. What to do when you want to get involved in a speed game where there's a history of running, a database of glitches, and people happy to help. If you really want to put in zero effort and ignore all these things, be my guest. Go start up a run and just time yourself. It's no bonus effort to learn anything new, and it's still speedrunning. But if you want to take that a bit further, see if there's a beginner's guide out there for the game. More likely than not, someone has taken it upon themselves to get the basic level of glitches and tricks that most people should learn to cut down the time in the game. You can either search YouTube for game name plus beginner speedrun guide, or look at speedrun.com guides tab to typically find these. Ultimately, here is where investing just time playing the game and learning the basic tricks can really help you immensely. A lot of games are about the core mechanics of the game, like movement. After you've gotten a good base to work on, games with a lot of information tend to have Discord communities that you should be a part of. It'll help you find some streamers to watch and see some cool tricks from, videos of better runs that you can check out and ask questions here and there. Links to these Discords are usually found in the game's speedrun.com page under the game's specific resources page. Make sure to use the search feature on Discord to see if anyone else has the same questions you did. You don't want to clutter the Discord up too much. Now is the time to find more high-end strategy and tricks you didn't want to start with before when you didn't understand a lot of the basics of the game. Glitches can really add up for time saves, and knowing what common ones are used in runs that are better than yours are a good start. Watch some better runs and take notes. Look around on the speedrun.com page for specific resources and guides that have links to the glitches they use or a database for their glitches. Finally, we have the finishing touches, the big pieces that really polish your runs and require your effort. Number 1, put more time in. It's really easy to underestimate how important it is to just run the game you want to run. Practice the tricks you're bad at, and how big of an impact it can be to actually spend more time ironing out the muscle memory. A good thing to remember is how many thousands of hours the top runner of games like Super Mario 64 have put in, and just as importantly, how many failed runs they've done, just to get themselves to the top. They are also competing with hundreds of other runners, after all. In a lot of cases, though, once you have the knowledge to do the top level tricks and skips, it really breaks down to consistency and pure time and effort. Practice to improve consistency, especially for individual glitches. Good ways of doing this include using save states and custom practice ROMs if the game you are learning has them, but sometimes you just have to deal with what you have, like making saves and swapping between them for practice. These kinds of tools will vary a lot depending on the game you're learning, so make sure to look around the resources and Discord for different options of practice, from trainers to practice ROMs to save files that you can use. Well-researched and played speedruns have a ton of information already out there to dive into, but can be more difficult to get into the top level play due to that. But honestly, most games aren't actually at that level, usually having a much smaller community, more in the dozens rather than the hundreds. These games aren't usually as solved at the top, but they might not have good setups for starters either. Like always, start off by playing a game with a timer if you don't care to dive into any of the information already out there. Otherwise, look around for a beginner's guide if there is one, but don't despair if you can't find one. Another great option is to see if there's a relatively new run that isn't the current world record. These usually don't have any crazy tricks, but have some of the bigger skips that are considered easy. The final option is to see if the current world record holder has some older runs where they weren't doing anything as crazy as they currently are. This is usually a pretty out there option and requires more digging into obsolete run options on speedrun.com, and I would honestly suggest starting with just playing through the game, improving on base movement and other techniques to the core game, rather than trying to find this perfect thing to model yourself after. Moving forward with more time investment, we go back to the classic join Discord. Like before, you'd be surprised what there can be for smaller communities of games, and the big impact it can have in talking to people in the community. Like always, make sure to use the search function to make sure you're not asking something that's come up a lot before, but otherwise, try to poke around a bit. Speedrunning tends to have pretty kind communities, and usually is a place where everyone wants to see growth across the board. Plus, who knows, maybe you'll be a new driving force behind improving the game one day. At this point, if you didn't already, I fully recommend watching the world record run of the game and taking some notes. If there are some tricks you don't recognize, try to see if there's any documentation on how they're done, and if not, try to figure it out yourself. Also, it's a little high effort, but it would be nice to make documentation if there isn't already some. Teaching others and knowing how to explain the trick to someone else can actually really help out your own understanding of the game and even make you more consistent. At this point, you're starting to approach high effort, which is still capped with just spend time practicing the glitches and techniques you need for the run, and just actually completing runs. If you're looking for something a bit more hardcore, maybe try to break everything a bit yourself, making use of the bugs in other places, or just going crazy. Make some documentation or a beginner's guide if there isn't one, and you might realize things you've been taking for granted that you need to work on a bit for yourself still. Last but not least, we break into one of the hardest things to do, breaking a game with no backup. It's just you and the game. Well, technically there is a really easy way to approach this. Like always, just dive into the game and try your best. Time yourself and just keep improving on it. It's no extra time invested into breaking the game or finding insane glitches, but it's honest and straightforward work. That almost always pays off, since you're getting better at the core techniques of the game anyways. It's almost always a great way to start, and usually if a huge game-breaking glitch changes the entire way the game is approached, odds are some people might want to avoid it, and you're still good to go for that too. Besides, if you're truly the first runner, you kind of get to make up your own rules. Now, if you want to start growing the knowledge and maybe even the community, you have a lot of options in front of you that definitely require some effort. If you've found any glitches, please document them. Write down places you found to use the glitch and how it's done. Bonus points for recording yourself with software showing your inputs to help future people or yourself replicate the glitch. Start up a Discord or see if there's one for a fresh game with lots of hype, and keep an eye on the chatter, since you never really know when new things might be found or something you found can change everything up. But almost always, more important than anything else, spend more time. Try crazy ideas to break the game. Try new methods and time things side by side to see if specific routes are faster than others. Just try. This all kind of rolls up ultimately into the high effort options, but fresh games are really a clean slate. A lot of the work still needs to be done in the game to be truly optimized, and honestly, it's probably not going to be done just by you or in a small amount of time. But that's okay. Skill and improvements are made over time, and speedrunning absolutely is no different. If you're willing to put in the high amount of time and effort, I really do recommend recording everything, measuring everything, and documenting to the best of your skills. It's no small task, but it's insane how much of a difference it can make to not only others, but even yourself. If you're able to look back at something you managed to skip once and tell exactly how you did it, you could replicate it and practice it more and more, eventually making it a core glitch you might be able to use in your runs to save you vital time. You might be able to replicate it somewhere else in the game because you have that documentation from the first time. If there are other games in the series, check them out too if you have the time. You would be surprised how much stays broken if the game is made in the same engine by the same company. Fresh speedrun games might be a lot of work, but they so often are huge sandboxes to play in if you want to spend the time and the effort to break it. Speedrunning can really be a lot to take in all at once, but I do believe anybody who spends time little by little and bit by bit can really enjoy it, and anyone can start with just a game and a timer. It's one of my favorite hobbies, and I really hope this information gives you an idea of not only how to start, but things to consider down the line if you're wondering what to do after you've started and you want to deep dive into more. Let me know if you have any questions about something you felt I've skipped or just want to know more about in the comments, or try to catch me live, and I'll try to get any of that information in either another video or written out somewhere in the description. Good luck speedrunning, and as always, have a good one. Peace.